sporty city e-bikes are an absolute dime a dozen, so manufacturers have to come up with something to make their bike really stand out from the crowd. With this bike, there are three right away. Morning, I'm Tillman from the Radelbande, and this is the ADO Air 30 Ultra. It looks good, has some exciting features on board, and is still relatively affordable. So, what's the catch? ADO lent me the Air 30 Ultra and they're financially supporting the production of this video. However, they didn't give me any specific talking points or instructions on what to say. All thoughts and opinions expressed are entirely my own, and they won't get to see the video before you do. We are completely manufacturer neutral. If you want to help ensure that as many people as possible see this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. For example, what kind of experience you have had with inexpensive e-bikes from Asia. That would really interest me. ADO isn't actually called ADO, but ADO because it's actually an abbreviation for AD's Oasis. What does that mean? I truly have absolutely no idea. ADO is one of the Chinese manufacturers that managed to gain a foothold in the European market a few years ago with the e-bike boom, and not just with low prices, but also with their CE certification, a number of genuinely innovative and exciting features, and a truly attractive overall design. So let's take a closer look at this now. The frame and fork are made of aluminum and they accommodate classic 28-inch wheels. The design features this curve that starts down here, sweeps upward, makes a slight bend here, and then carries over into the down tube here at the front. That particular top bend is something we've already seen on other sporty bikes, but the specific way it's combined here makes it look truly extraordinary and uniquely individual. You can get the frame in two different color options. One version features this green-beige accent, while the other one is a gray version that includes blue detailing. Overall, it's a very sophisticated and refined design. Up here in the visible area, which is beautifully executed, all of the weld seams have been very smoothly and cleanly blended for a seamless look. You can clearly see the weld seams become much more prominent and noticeably less finished, which is the precise spot where you definitively realize and understand it's a high-quality aluminum frame construction, not carbon fiber. You can then see the weld seams, which are all very well executed and feature nice, consistent beads that look quite uniform and professionally finished even in these more complex frame areas down here. It gets particularly interesting here with the further technology because we absolutely mustn't forget this here is a €2,000 electric bike. The dropouts, for instance, are adjustable by means of a sliding mechanism. And the ADO isn't merely compatible with a belt drive, but it is also equipped with a low-maintenance belt drive as a standard feature. Such details like the integrated stand mount are far from standard in this price range. It even includes a suspension seat post, which is a truly unexpected feature that adds considerable value. Which is also necessary, we'll discuss that later concerning ride dynamics. Further details include the fully integrated cables, which run up here under the front cover and then become completely invisible as they are routed and distributed throughout the frame. One cable runs to this small separate box located up here. Concealed behind this panel are the antennas that provide GPS tracking of the bike's location. That's pretty cool. And another cable goes to the integrated battery unit, but once again, it's a special construction. Even though it's quite a slim-looking e-bike, they didn't go for a fully integrated battery here, but rather one that can easily be removed with a turn of the key. Great if the bike has to be parked outdoors all the time. In terms of practicality, the Air 30 Ultra doesn't leave anything to be desired. This luggage rack here is rated for up to 25 kilograms, and it actually provides ample space for items such as panniers, or even a basket, for example. Up here, at the seat tube, you can find a bottle cage boss for mounting a folding lock, for example, or other accessories, such as, well, a bottle cage for a water bottle. As for the geometry of the Air 30 Ultra, it should be mentioned that this bike is available in two different frame sizes. One in a smaller frame size for people between 1.53 meters and 1.75 meters, at least according to ADO, and one in a larger frame size like this one here for people between 1.73 meters and 1.95 meters. And the geometries are either comparatively upright or very, very sporty, depending on which end of the size spectrum you're on, so it really comes down to your individual height, your personal riding preference, and what feels most comfortable for you. In my specific case, the handlebar was positioned exceptionally, really quite low. I sat there like a monkey on a grindstone, and then Ado sent me this particular solution, which all of you with eagle eyes have surely already spotted. Now I'm definitely sitting in a much better position. However, I think I would probably prefer a handlebar that has a bit of a rise to it so that the cables can still remain nicely hidden away. Operating the Ado Air 30 Ultra hardly raises any questions. We have a large button here for turning it on, which you have to press for quite a long time before the bike turns on, and then it comes to life here on this central display. The plus and minus buttons are used to adjust the support mode, and they also turn on the light when you press and hold them. Additionally, they initiate the walking assist feature down here with a long press, making it easy to handle. The display in the middle is quite large overall, but the information on it is relatively small, and in direct sunlight it can sometimes be quite challenging to see. ADO also provides an app which you can use to control the bike, allowing you to check various statistics such as the total distance you've traveled and the amount of CO2 you've saved, among other things. Navigation is also possible, so it's not just about GPS tracking, but actual navigation as well. Then there's a service page and also a few settings you can configure, which are pretty straightforward to use. It's just that not everything has been translated yet, and the app doesn't work 100% either, to be perfectly honest. But the truly fantastic part is that you don't actually need to use the app at all to ride this particular bicycle. On the right side, you see a handlebar grip and this strangely looking shifter, which isn't actually a gear shifter at all, but it's actually designed to be a turn signal switch. Because this bicycle actually comes equipped with turn signals, it doesn't have a gear shifter, but it is still fitted with multiple gears. The secret is hidden within this motor housing right here. Combined motors and gearboxes are no longer a groundbreaking innovation. But this one is, because this is the first bike with the Bafang H730 motor featuring an integrated 3-speed gearbox. And unlike previous similar systems, this one manages to operate entirely without requiring any additional cables or external switches. 3-speed might sound like your grandma's Dutch bike, but that's actually 2 gears more than many other comparable bikes. The 40 Newton meters of torque deliver solid power to the road, appealing specifically to riders who want a simple, low-maintenance, and very easy-to-use gear system, but don't want to deal with the inconvenience of bulky, expensive gearboxes or delicate derailleur systems. So let's take the bike for a spin across my city and see how it handles. The very first test will be its acceleration from a standstill to 25 kilometers per hour. And for that, we've now switched to the highest support level, level 3. And the lowest gear. But we can't influence that at all. Let's get started. Second gear, third gear, and we're already at 25 kilometers per hour. The really incredible thing about accelerating this bike to 25 kilometers per hour is that acoustically there's absolutely no indication of any motor being installed here whatsoever. And the gear shifts are exceptionally smooth and almost imperceptibly gentle. And now, despite this really quite strong headwind we're facing, we're getting genuinely impressive acceleration when you had to slow down for just a moment and then get back on the power again. The engine copes with that really nicely too. And at 25 kilometers per hour, with this current configuration, you're looking at a cadence of about 65 revolutions per minute, and that's actually set. So the shift system was configured specifically to engage automatically at these predetermined specific speed thresholds. Now let's see how it handles the Jerusalemsberg. The incline here isn't very steep. We definitely want to maintain a high cadence. We can't really influence that right now, but let's see how quickly the motor pushes us up this incline. 24 kilometers per hour is our baseline speed. It's getting a bit steeper here now. This incline is 2 to 3%, so not super steep. But I don't want to push more than 200 watts, and now around 17.9 kilometers per hour. This motor is pushing us up here. That's actually pretty good. So it's got a pretty good punch, this motor. The cadence would just be a bit too low for me personally in this particular case. Since it's a fully automatic system, you simply can't have any direct influence over the gears. And when such a traffic situation has cleared up, you can get back on your way here pretty quickly once more. It's definitely not a bicycle that's intended for serious mountain terrain. But when dealing with the typical light to moderate inclines found in an urban environment, I'd say it handles them quite capably and effectively. So, over the edge. Edges are completely punched through. I didn't really expect anything different from a full aluminum construction, to be perfectly honest. But once you're back on a smooth surface, it really rides very pleasantly. You can see I have a very sporty riding position despite the much higher handlebar. And if you want to really throw this bike aggressively into corners, then it's simply a sporty urban bike. It has a very stable construction. The geometry is perfectly dialed in, so you get absolutely no wobble, just a very stable and planted feeling on the road. It's actually very well developed in this regard. The great thing is this bike always automatically shifts back to first gear when it comes to a stop at a traffic light or when it slows down. And the shifting points themselves are preset. They are determined solely by the riding speed and, as you would naturally expect, are not based on the torque applied by the rider to the pedals, nor on factors such as the incline of the road itself, for example. Let's try. So, first gear, second gear, third gear. So, second gear is set at about 9 kilometers per hour and third gear at about 21 kilometers per hour. Since this is a sporty e-bike, it most likely means we'll feel perfectly at home when riding on gravel, won't we? And yes, that is indeed the case. The tyres have a bit of a profile, quite a good grip, suitable for urban areas but also for adventures like this. The bike goes into corners very quickly and handles extremely well, yet it remains remarkably stable. Ultimately, it's probably a gravel bike frame, just with a flat handlebar. So that's really no problem at all. Only the vibrations are relatively strong, and now let's see how it is here. On the infamous incline, where it actually goes from completely flat to pretty steep uphill, you see. Alright, so now we're back in the strongest support in the very lowest gear and we are taking off. It actually engages support quite quickly. And now I can begin pedaling uphill very slowly, while using only a very minimal amount of pressure on the pedals. That's pretty good. So the 40 Newton meters of torque from the motor, they feel really good in this situation. If you have longer climbs like these for any sustained period, then it'll probably be overwhelmed too. But for these short stretches like the one we just had, it's actually perfectly well suited. I've loaded the bike up to the full maximum permitted weight of 120 kilograms, and that's simply a direct result of me being a heavier person myself. So you just have to see how heavy you are yourself and how much luggage you can take. What's really noticeable when I'm pedaling here like this is that the Q factor is actually quite large, and I'm still sitting just a little bit too low for my liking. So what I'd really prefer is to be sitting about 5 millimeters higher. But even with the motor completely turned off, the bike is still remarkably easy to move around. Not quite as fast as when the motor is engaged perhaps, but the electronic gear shift still functions perfectly well in this particular situation here. Then comes the 3-speed Grandma Dutch bike aspect again. Because you're naturally putting in quite a noticeable amount of physical effort while riding this way. The bike's handling is, in a positive sense, unspectacular. It rolls super straight ahead. It leans into corners well. It's only a little uncomfortable at times, but we're about to see that now on the cobblestones. And here, the handlebars are shaking and rattling quite a bit. Completely unsprung. The suspension seat post does compensate a little, but not by a whole lot. The tires themselves aren't necessarily hard at all. In fact, they're quite soft, but they are of course very classic and relatively narrow in their overall construction and profile. So you really shouldn't be expecting any comfort miracles here at all. Accelerate up to 25 and then brake hard right at the second line. And now. As expected, it's simply a hydraulic disc brake. And the braking performance, or more specifically the stopping distance, is most likely dependent on your riding skills. The brakes themselves aren't the problem. They are adequately sized, they are reliable and have a good, strong grip. The lever operation is very smooth and effortless. I have no complaints whatsoever on that front. That's another point where some manufacturers tend to cut corners. Tektro isn't a premium manufacturer, but they definitely make good quality brakes. Yeah, that's how the ADO Air 30 Ultra rides. It's a sporty e-bike that's actually quite comfortable and easygoing in its overall character and feel at its core. And now we want to see how I liked it after a few weeks. So some weeks have passed, and first we need to clarify what this here means. And I have asked ADO about it and actually gotten a reply back. It says ADO stands for Oasis in the Desert. Inspired by the crescent moon spring, a genuine jewel of the ancient Silk Road, which served as a bridge connecting east and west. For millennia, it has flowed through the harsh desert landscape, offering essential hope and vital strength to the countless travelers who faced immense hardship on their arduous journeys. Overcoming this immense challenge, and that's precisely what I personally experienced when riding with the So I've had the chance to ride the R30 Ultra in my daily life for several weeks now, testing it thoroughly across different scenarios, which has allowed me to form a solid opinion. You can find all of that in written form over the link in the video description. Now, let's quickly touch on 3 points that I was really fond of and 3 points that I believe could use some improvement. And we'll start with the latter. And here's the first point. I think that many more people would be able to find a good riding position on this bike if the steerer tube were longer and the handlebars were therefore quite a bit higher. Because then you'd also have to give up entirely on this particular solution, where I would anyway personally prefer to use a handlebar with some rise to properly adjust and refine the riding position, rather than having this look a bit messy and untidy like it does here. The second point is, even though the gearbox itself works perfectly fine, I would still really like to be able to shift gears myself, or at least have the option to manually adjust the individual gear levels. Hopefully that's still to come, and the third point might not be that important to some, but for me it's quite essential. This is a 30.4mm thick seat post, which is absolutely nowhere near being a standard size. I genuinely wonder why they decided on this specific size, when there are so many other fantastic seat post sizes readily available out there that actually have seat posts readily available on the market, and that's what makes it almost a bit of a tragedy, because the rest is pretty standard, but now we're getting to the parts where it actually excels and does really well. So you've got standard wheels, standard tires, standard handlebars, a standard stem, and a standard saddle. The entire configuration is intentionally designed for straightforward, hassle-free maintenance, and is remarkably easy to swap out if any of those parts happen to wear down or get damaged over time. But just not the seat post. And that's how the Ado 30 Ultra truly distinguishes itself from a lot of other urban bikes, which frequently rely on proprietary components or non-standard custom measurements. I really like that. The second point that I'm genuinely impressed by is that when you look at this bike, you wouldn't expect it to be a €2,000 e-bike, because it's really well made technically, and visually too, in my opinion, and others also agree that it's a real eye-catcher. Honestly, it really stands out and looks fantastic and impressive for a bike in this price range. And the third point is the ease of use, so how simple and straightforward it is to use in everyday life. It's really good. It doesn't raise any questions. You just have to switch it on, select the desired level of support, and start riding. And that makes the whole process significantly easier than what you typically experience with many other bikes. But who is the Ado R30 Ultra best suited for now? It's definitely a strong contender to consider if you're currently looking for a city e-bike on the market. If you don't have steep hills but do have inclines, it handles them well with its 3-speed gearing, and it maintains 25 kilometers per hour on the flat with a comfortable pedaling cadence. I realize most people actually prefer to pedal a bit slower than I do personally, but it should be very well suited for that particular purpose, especially if you aren't necessarily looking to go for a single-speed drive system. Also the low maintenance, the minimal amount of upkeep required, that you can take the battery inside with you, and so on. That is precisely what sets this bike apart from many other bikes in this price range. So you need to be aware that this bike is basically only available online right now. So it's definitely a good idea to check with a local partner workshop beforehand to see if they are willing to service a bike from this particular brand, especially since its distribution network is still quite limited and not as widespread as other brands. If they'd be willing to service this bike, some workshops don't want to do that, but ADO is actively looking for new partners in that area as well. But as I said, that shouldn't really be a major problem because the hub motor and the use of standard components make it quite straightforward. Especially when you consider the price of just under €2,000, this is a pretty strong contender. Here's a video for you featuring a bike that costs only half as much. You really ought to take a look at that one. You can subscribe right here, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now, everyone.